So, welcome everyone. Today we have another great episode of the Beyond Consulting podcast, and it's my real pleasure to talk about digital transformation with a very special guest that we have. So, I looked up his LinkedIn profile, and there it says corporate operations, revenue operations, digital transformation, process, and cash flow optimization. I think those are some great topics to be involved with these days. I would love to introduce Sandor Foldi. He's the Global Head of Digital Transformation at PM International. Welcome to the show.
Hi, Christian. Hi, everyone. Thank you for the invitation. It's exciting to talk about these topics, and indeed, as you listed, a couple of things that I'm currently involved with and have been in the past years. I think, there's a lot of things that we could discuss today.
Yeah, really looking forward to it. And Sandor, you are sitting in Luxembourg today in your home office, or is it the corporate one? Where are you at today?
I'm actually in a corporate office today, and I just carved out some time so that we can have this conversation. I'm located in Schengen, Luxembourg, working for PM International. And enjoying this wonderful January weather that I think you're not located in Luxembourg, so you can't enjoy it, but it's similar to Britain, I would say today. Looks really dark and dull in general.
Nice. Yeah, it's a traditional European winter day, probably. I'm here in Düsseldorf, in our Düsseldorf office from Expert Powerhouse. And Sandor, I mean, it's really fascinating when I look up all the stages that you've did. You did a lot of work in operations and digital transformation. What fascinates you about those topics?
Oh, well, there's I tried to, let's say, think about this in the past because I always end up somehow in transformation. Doesn't matter which aspect of a business I'm working on. But I think that the core of it is that there's always a next stage for everything. There's always room for improvement, and you can always go from wherever you are higher. I think that's something which each and every company can learn along the way of their business runs. That no matter how efficient we think we are, no matter how unique we think we are as a company, no matter how complicated our processes are, or we believe how complicated our processes are, we can always improve them, we can always simplify them, we can always streamline them better. We just have to put a little bit effort in it, and then we realize that we can save a lot of time, effort, and costs. Obviously, that's the key aspects of any transformation. And today we are fully digital. I think it's really skyrocketed globally during the pandemic, when everybody transitioned and realized how much benefits could we grab from the cloud services that we have, how much we can rely on video communication, just like we do this call today. I think it's also fascinating how technology evolved in the last 5 to 10 years. You still remember when those 2 years were first the years of the API. Everybody was developing their APIs so that platforms can be connected. And then after APIs were done, it's time for platformization. So everybody's building now a platform with multi-services, with microservices built in, so that they can cater for more and more and more services with their original dedicated tools to grab more areas from the market and more customers. So I think it's really fascinating because no matter where you look at today, you always see that. You call it transformation or development or evolution. It doesn't really matter. It's technically the same thing. We just have a digital aspect of it.
And can we make it more specific now? So if you think about like PMI, PM International, what is it that you do there? What is the company about? If you can maybe educate us a bit on to bring that to life for the visible eye and the ear. I read a bit about it in the lifestyle and beauty segment. There are a lot of interesting products, but I think you could explain it, of course, much better.
Yes, I think PM International is a really respected European company. We are, as you mentioned already, moving along the products of beauty, healthcare, and nutrition. We're a direct selling company. We have global offices worldwide, and you can imagine the complexity of the operations of the company. So the current aspect of this is to put everything to the next level, including our organization, including our systems, be it some legacy. Of course, everybody still has, larger companies especially, some legacy systems that could be, let's say that, I'll put it this way, operations sometimes outgrow the legacy systems, although in the very beginning they were perfect for the single sole purpose that they have been built on, and along the years they've been patched and improved and grew, and maybe where they were put on cloud from on-premise and so on. Sometimes it just doesn't match anymore the company's profile, to keep tailoring them and put effort and take the risks associated with it. So obviously at this stage it doesn't make sense to mention, I would say, specifics of these legacy systems, and it's also confidential what we're changing to what. But if you take at the overall picture, we're looking at the organization to be improved, because using, for core processes and core services, legacy systems comes with the cost of not having exposure to enterprise solutions. So that's one of the undertakes that we have to dodge, to introduce people to new digital platforms, to tools that can help them improve their day-to-day business as usual operations with automation, with digitalization, with digitization, reducing the amount of documents involved, the amount of manual labor involved. We have a lot of processes where these gaps have been created during the years by not having connected platforms, and these gaps are being breached by people, which is, even if they do a great job, it's a lot of effort. So we want to reduce the effort. We want to give back time to our people so that they can use it for more meaningful activities and value add projects and actions that can help bring the company forward.
And now, I mean, you are in charge of leading this, yeah, and then driving it forward. There must be the multitude of systems and solutions out there in the market, yeah, where you say, look, this is something interesting, why not try this? Or this is something, or we see this company is introducing something, why not also do it? How much do you basically take decisions yourself? How much do you rely on external expertise or advisors to guide through in a selection process, or even ideating around what type of systems you need to change? Because I think could be kind of complex, right? You change one component that has implications on everything else, or you maybe later find, oh, there was even a better one, and then what
Yes,
you do. So you want to make a very substantial and good choices, but also no one knows probably all software solutions out there in the market. So it's like, how do you go about these
well, that's
decisions?
a great segue and overlap between consulting activities and internal activities, I think. It's really a large exercise to evaluate any kind of new solution. And before we even go to evaluation, because obviously the first thing that comes to mind is, okay, we have a problem, let's solve it. We cannot solve it, then did somebody solve it already for others? If they provide something that we can also use to solve the same problem and maybe add extra performance or extra functionality or feature with the same platform. But sometimes we tend to forget that we have to do an assessment and internal assessment, not just because of the problem, but because what you mentioned, that the larger the company, the more complicated the operations are, the more complex the organization is. You have to understand how everything is connected, especially if it's sprinkled with some legacy tools. That is, there's one development in Vancouver who's maintaining that single line of code that nobody's aware of. And if that guy is sick for 2 weeks, then the whole system just breaks. And not everybody is aware of these specialties. So it's really important to be aware of the full circle and not just the spectacular problem that you want to solve when you start an evaluation of any kind of solution. It can be hardware, software, other technology, operational, or just a consulting an advisory solution, or even a financial solution. Doesn't matter what you look at. But you're right, it takes a lot of effort, and it can be really lost in the details. Uh, Assessing the market for any kind of solution once you discovered what you actually need is another beast of its own, and I think that's one of the let's say that's one of the uh, drivers of engaging consultants in the first place. Uh, because not everybody or not each company has, the internal in-house expertise or the dedication to actually invest the time into discovering the market and then participating in the discovery calls, in the qualification calls, in the demos, then pulling in more and more people, because obviously you need more eyes to make an informed decision about any kind of solution that you want to implement. So I think it's always 50-50. Some companies take it on if they have trusted advisors in-house, and they do have the experts who can represent the interest of multiple departments in the company. They take it on. I did this a lot of times in the past with internal teams, with consultants, with leadership, without leadership. Sometimes it's also required that they give their opinion on certain things, especially if you have a specialty CEO, as I think in Europe it's kind of usual that they have a.
What is it? A specialty CEO
It's
is a
it's something that I'm not sure who invented and who can I coin the description to, but a specialty CEO is someone who is super enthusiastic about one thing, and they run the business well. They have the entrepreneurship, they have the attitude, they have the qualities, but all in all, you can box them in. Like, this CEO is like a marketing specialist, this CEO is a finance specialist, this CEO is a sales specialist. So they all have their extreme magnitude in at least one domain of the business that they really love. And if you have these type of CEOs, depending on the area that you want to discover, they are super happy to get involved. So if you have really a finance type of CEO, they will be extremely encouraged by default to join any kind of ERP evaluation. Or if you're looking at the treasury, they really want to get involved and see what's going on behind. The same goes for marketing, let's say, or if a CEO is marketing, they really want to understand, the CRM part. They want to see what you're evaluating for broadcast marketing email campaigns. What are you using for tracking, for automation? Sometimes you're not that lucky. Sometimes you just have a good CEO who has no direct specialty. And then it's always harder to give the final okay or denial on something, because they are not sure if this is the right solution, but they can still rely on the other experts in the company or the specialty C-suite who they have as a CMO or a CFO, and so on and so on. So sometimes this is just too overwhelming and too much for a company, and they say, we don't have time to do this. Let's get a consultant. Let's work jointly, and then let's decide what's the best solution for our problem.
Yeah, and so my question is also, I could think of a situation where you say, look, we know there are some existing solutions in the market, but actually we find they are a bit expensive. So we just also have a developer team, yeah, and they are there anyways. So why not let's build it in-house? I mean, did you
Absolutely.
see situations like this? You probably end up like building a CRM yourself or building some automations yourself, whereas there are industry standard solutions. And I don't know if there is a right or wrong, but what's your view on that? Should companies build something in-house if they have the capabilities, or if they should only build things where they say like this will be, something new that
It
has
really
no one
depends what
built
the
before?
leadership wants. So there are 4 or 5 ways you can approach this. I would say one is that you decide that whatever we develop for our solution, we will just make it so good and we will support it that we either sell the IP or we will just put it on the market, because we are sure that we can make the best solution for this problem, even if we are not a software developer company. That's like a win-win scenario, because you solve your problem and you can still monetize on it. Then you have the other one, which is maybe, let's say, the enough resources and enough dedication and maybe paired up with some internal knowledge, it could turn out well. But you never know. So if the company's profile is not software development, my advice is always the first advice that I bring, even if I don't know all the circumstances and all the reasonings behind in-house development, is that there are hundreds of thousands or even millions of companies with the same issue. Because your company has to be really special to have such a unique process or such a unique problem that you cannot find a solution on the market for. Pricey or not, that's a matter of, again, comparing what would it cost in-house and what would it cost to purchase it from off the shelf. But if you have hundreds of thousands or millions of companies with similar problems, there are specialty companies who were finding that area of the market and putting a solution there which can cover your requirements. It's not always 100%, I'm aware of that, and you cannot find something which is perfect for everybody. But there's a high chance that in a shorter time you can solve your problem almost to the full extent, instead of going through the rough and sketchy road of reinventing the wheel yourself and pouring a lot of money and effort and frustration into a product which would have been maybe available directly next door from a SaaS provider. So it's always tricky to decide if in-house development worth it. We had in the past, I had a lot of solutions which were first in-house and then were exchanged. And even the guys who were working on it in-house said that, yeah, we cannot catch up with that existing technology. Think about the CRM. How many CRM platforms are there? If you want to build something in-house as your example, that would be overwhelming for any team. And you cannot make it with a handful of developers without having someone who is an expert in customer relationship management, who was working on 7, 8, 9 different platforms in the past, who can also talk to developers, because that's again a different a different requirement in the skill set. And it will take a lot of time to catch up with or get even close to something which has been on the market for, I don't know, 15 years or 20 years or 25 even.
Yeah, and so I mean that could be, of course, also a bit of a management decision in the end, where you need to believe if you can do it in-house or not. Do you see consultants play a role in that sort of decision making also?
That's a really nice tricky question. I would say that depending on how solid the company's goals are, this could go both ways. So you can directly ask consulting to help you develop your in-house solution for the specific problem. You can ask a consultant to find you a solution for your specific problem, and depending on the consultant's expertise and opinion, it can suggest to develop something in-house if the resources are there and this problem is not too complex, or they can just bring in a third-party solution, or the company can directly ask the consultant to bring us a third-party solution. So there's different ways. I think for in-house development, I rarely see external consultants being involved, because I think just the approach is different when you're thinking about in-house development. So there are specific reasons why you want to develop something in-house. Either is you're afraid of data exposure and you are only sure when it's really in-house made, in-house monitored, in-house hosted, in-house maintained, and in-house debugged, or you're part of something really secretive, something which is not exposed to the public, so you have to do it in-house, or you just have all the resources and you did it multiple times and you know that the next time you can also do it. So it's really tricky to let's say diverge from that decision if there are good reasons why somebody wants to do in-house development. And external consultants are part of this picture in terms of the trust aspect of the initiative. So if somebody knows that they will develop something in-house, it's rare that they involve external consultants. It's more involvement for the consultants when they don't have the resources, the company doesn't have the resources, and they ask a specific company who is in custom software development along with their consultants, because they know they can rely on those resources. Then it will be certified and it will be accredited by whatever requirements they have. And there's a certain amount of accountability that they can also shift to the consultant. So I think these are the two ways that I see the most.
And so, I mean, we're talking about now how to select a consultant and in which capabilities and roles could he come in. Yeah? Of course, you've worked in your past with a lot of projects, a lot of transformation programs. You've seen it all. Yeah. If you were to say, look, some engagements worked, some did not work so well, what makes a great consultant, and how do you get the best results from a consultant?
Oh, again, another not so easy to answer question, because it's scenario dependent. It's really, if we consider digital all in all, a good consultant is really made of somebody who has emotional intelligence, has been worked on the field in the aspect of the problem, and is also good with the solution that they provide hands-on. It's really a complex thing to be a consultant, as far as I see. And then the fourth aspect is somebody who's also able to work with people. But I think it comes from the sales nature of consulting, that most consultants I work with are good with people, good with leadership, because it's a core requirement anyway. So to be, let's say, a proper communicator in general, and try to understand that these guys have a problem. So I think it's really a mixture of a lot of skills, soft and hard skills. Hard to assess as a customer if you have a first engagement with a consulting group or a consultant team, if they are good or not. So it's really, I think from a customer's perspective, it's always a bet that you take on, and most of the times this bet is being judged. If it's a good bet or not bet, it's being judged by the first interaction with the leadership and the consultant. If it's the sympathy is there, the empathy is there, the skill set is there, the quick understanding when they start explaining, as a consultant, you probably saw that it's a different way of leadership explaining the problem. Sometimes it's because they see the problem differently, sometimes because they don't have the expertise to explain it deep enough. But the first engagement, I think, in the first 2-3 sessions of discovery with the consultants is really the deciding factor, when the leadership and the participants of the project can assess, okay, we trust somehow these guys, we trust somehow. That's kind of the division factor here, to decide how to choose a good consultant. And again, the second aspect is the experts from the company who are participating, because they only look at from my past experience, the experts of the company many times only look at the hard skills of the consultant. So if they are on the same page with the problem and the solution from day one, and the process understanding, the basic explanation makes sense to both parties, and they see that they can easily speak the lingo, to put it that way. I think that's the second layer of the decision, when the experts also say in the company, okay, we can work with these guys, not because of trust, but that we understand them, they understand us, our struggles, and they know our field well enough so that we can quickly blend into each other's teams.
Yeah. And now, I mean, if I imagine, if you select a consultant for a project, and now, I mean, no, PM International, it's a super big company. You're in, I looked it up on the website, 17 countries, I think. There's 45 entities. There is 900 million different products. Yeah. And now you bring the consultant basically in on a project. You establish the trust, but how do you make sure really to get the best results? And how do you also make sure that the results then are sticking within the company?
You are testing me. You are trialing me to end, I think, with these questions. It's always a risk. So ensuring is a strong word, I would say, but you can always try. And just like in any longer haul projects, there are always hiccups. There are always, people coming and going and falling out for sickness. There's always a lot of risks associated. But I think to ensure success, um, one of the first things is to win over the executive team, because there are two ways you can change your company, your processes, and your organization. And one is top down, which is the executive team communicating their commitment, their dedication, the importance and the priority of the change that you want to implement in the transformation projects that you're running. And then the inside out, which is the trusted advisors of each and every function and operations, the champions of the teams and the middle management who's spreading the word to the guys who we need to adopt to the change, because without adoption, you can do whatever you want, but it will never work, whatever change you try to impose on people. So it's really important that you have these first, the hierarchical top dogs, they spread and cascade down that this is important, guys, so we're now doing this. And then you have the inside out spread, where you really have the trusted guys, the champions, and the middle managers who are advocates for the change. I think this is without thinking about any technical or assessment or project management side of transformation projects, is one of the most and key elements, key importance elements of ensuring the success. Because if there's no continuous internal pitch and marketing, plus the authority from the executive team that, guys, you gotta do this, without that, I don't think it works.
And so it's the consultant's role also then to basically make sure these stories exist and basically are spreaded in the organization. So it's like a classical PMO, change management consultant, who would support
I would
in
say
such a setting, or
not fully, because one of the most important tasks and actions for a consultant is to create the, I wouldn't say to create the blueprint in a digestible way. And that's one hell of a job to do, because everybody who participates or will utilize the change or will be, let's say, the partaker of the change needs to understand, why are we doing this change? What is going to actually happen through this change? What is my involvement and what's the benefit? So the consultant is also part of the internal pitch. The consultant is granted the authority because there's a mandate, right? So the company is investing into this project heavily. It's investing in consultants, so the company can and project participants can have an additional resource to support the whole thing. PMO is of course part of it, so that's not even a question, because the expertise and the amount of different programs and projects the consultant run before gives them the framework that they rely on, so that, again, the company's internal resources don't have to reinvent the whole thing. I think it's a super important part to transfer the message. So that's really important, that not everybody from the company possesses the skill set to communicate in a way a consultant is usually doing it, with confidence, with expertise, with background knowledge, and then lay out the plan for everybody to understand, this is from where we go to this point, which is the next step and our evolution, and these are all the things that you will be involved in, and this is why it's making sense.
Mm-hmm. And so if you were to sit here in 10 years, let's assume like we have the same conversation again, how do you make the middle layer active, to spread the news, to communicate the change, to have the change story? Would, from your perspective, there be an AI that basically steers all the digital transformation programs, like a PM, like an AI PMO? Or would you basically then not need any consultants anymore because the AI is taking over? What's your perspective?
Taking over is always difficult when you talk about machine learning and AI in general. There's a lot of things that these solutions can do, but not without human interaction. I think that's still a key aspect. And in 10 years, of course, the evolution of these things are so rapid that it's really hard to forecast 10 years, because 5 years ago, I have never thought about the things that happened in these 5 years. And if you think about the 10-year span, it's just even more difficult to believe how many things improved, because 10 years ago, there was not even the slightest forecast of having co-pilots and chat GPTs and Claudes and all the other AIs. So it's really hard to commit to predict something in 10 years.
If you were to say in 3 years, what would be sort of the key things you would see happening on the
On
execution
the
side
execution side
of
of transformation, I do
transformations?
believe that in 3 years you will have some serious AI support. I think one of the crucial and most difficult things that are currently human bound and expertise bound is really data migration and ETL pipelines. I think AI is one of the perfect solutions to do that, to help from one system to another, to migrate your data, to map the fields, to identify the context, because you have all these analytical tools today which are using machine learning to recognize patterns, to give you forecasts, and so on. I think this is something that can be definitely utilized in the future for any kind of transformation project, but it will still not replace the human effort, because that's one of the things that we tend to forget with AI. Unless you give them triggers, they don't act on their own. So somebody has to tell them what to do, and then they do a terrific job. If they are being told the right time, then the right way, sorry, they do a terrific job. And I think this could be utilized in multiple ways for larger, heavier workloads. And again, I'm not an oracle, so maybe somebody will reinvent again something much larger than working on ETL pipelines and data migration and data mapping. But I think that's always the hardest and heaviest exercise. You have process mining, so we're getting closer already. That's the other thing. So the process transformation, I think that's one of the other things that we can improve in the next 3 years. And other than that, it's really up to a lot of things to forecast 3 years. I think it's always difficult and more difficult to create even a corporate plan for 5 years, for 3 years, for 2 years, because everything is changing so rapidly that you cannot foresee everything. And I'm also being careful with my with my future telling, because I really don't know what I'm gonna think about this if I hear this again in 3 years. But I think those are potential, really high potential time saver, risk saver activities that we can use machine learning and AI processing tools and solutions to improve, because these are heavy exercises, and this always opens up new opportunity doors. So if somebody figures out how to do this, then you always have a new idea that
So
I don't have in mind yet.
potentially also good news for the consultants, of course, but you then need to know what are kind of the AIs that you can utilize to make those migration processes work. And still you would need the human
Absolutely.
basically driving the process. Now, and it's probably the last question, if you had to give a single career advice, now we talked about a lot digital transformation, and I know there is a lot of people out there in that field, and maybe also even some consultants in that field of digital transformation. If it would be a single career advice that you would give
To a
to them, what would it
consultant, you
be?
would say a single career advice. Ooh, that's again, you formed your questions. You were actually putting this list of questions really well together, Christian. A single advice is always difficult, because then you have an expectation that it has to be the wisest and the best advice you can give, and I'm not even sure if that's possible in general.
Yeah, I think what is your
I'm not
career
even sure if
advice? In consulting, it's either 1, 3, or 5 bullet points.
probably like that. So one of the first things from a consultant's career perspective is that try to be less sales oriented. I met with a lot of consultants. Of course, all the consultants are 50% sales guys. They have to generate revenue at the same time solving problems. So that is completely understood. But it's really important, even if the client is pushing for pricing and the estimate and the first offer, to first try to solve the problem in the heads if that's something that goes through as a message, because there's a lot of uncertainty in any company who's hiring a consultant. That's one of the main drivers of getting consultant engagement, that they are uncertain about the thing. They are uncertain about the problem. They are either uncertain about their in-house expertise. They are uncertain about the solution they are looking for. They are uncertain about the efforts magnitude. There's a lot of questions in their heads, so try to focus less on sales in the beginning. I think that's one of the career advice that I can give, and focus on the problem, because it means a lot to the customer, and it helps build that trust that I've been talking about a few minutes ago, that can actually push the scale into the right direction of the engagement from the consultant's perspective. So I think that's one of the advices that I have.
I think it's super relevant, Sandor. Thank you very much for being part of the show today. I enjoyed speaking with you a lot, and I hope there were a lot of interesting things also you take away. And yeah, I think it's been really great. Thank you for joining.
Yeah, thank you for the invite.